if you're at the game last night, I think you'd be forgiven if you were kind of keeping one eye on the watch, thinking, maybe I should depart and get me early train, or maybe you're watching it at home and thinking, the darts are on, or Taggart or Last of the Summer Wine or whatever, or something else, but other than watch that game, I think you've been forgiven because it wasn't the most entertaining. However, West Ham got a point against Brighton, 0-0. And overall, Riley, you have to say, mate, probably a fair result and one that it could be a valuable point at the end of the season. First of all, mate, what was your sort of overall take on the game? I mean, I know obviously there's a few murmurings, people a bit frustrated. There's a few boos, I think, at the full-time whistle, but I mean, I don't know. One of those things, it wasn't obviously the most entertaining, but what was your kind of take on it?
Well, mate, there's a number of things that have happened throughout this season. I think if you told me at the start of the season, I probably wouldn't have believed you. For instance, Jarrod Bowen being on 11 goals, only behind, I think, Salah and Haaland. If you'd have told me that West Ham would be 6th in the league, I wouldn't have believed you. But if you had told me that we went unbeaten against Brighton, I would have told you, no way. There's absolutely no way that we've gone, not only we beat them as well. No, you're lying to me. You're absolutely, there's absolutely no way I would have believed that at the start of this season. And, 4 points against Brighton when more or less, I think, for the most part, the most we've ever really got on is 2 points, maybe even 1. So I think, I know that they're only Brighton, but you have to take that into account. It's been a great season, another clean sheet. I think as well, people don't really take into account the fact that we had 5 first-team players out last night. We had a back line, which pretty much had our one designated fullback, and the rest were players we wouldn't normally play. We were without Paqueta and Kudus, who are incredibly influential in our team. So the fact that we basically had 3 makeshifts, players that we wouldn't normally play in the back 4, and we lacked our creative talents of Paqueta and Kudus, I think you absolutely take a point at home to Brighton. I think that's a very good result. It's another clean sheet. I think a lot of that has to do with the goalkeeping, very strong goalkeeping. Alvarez had a good performance as well. But, I think the string of results we've had have been very good, and you're not always going to play your best. I mean, I think if you take 5 key players out of any team, if you take Saka, Jesus, Martinelli, Odegaard out of the Arsenal team, I think they'd struggle to score goals. Even City, look at how they struggle without players like Haaland and De Bruyne. You can't always, do it. But I think the main thing it highlights for me, Mark, is that, we definitely need to bring in some players in this January transfer window. We've got Kudus out for an entire month, potentially. Paqueta obviously picked up an injury. We don't know how long he's going to be. If someone like Bowen picks up an injury, I mean, we're losing potentially Tilo, Soufal as well. I think he was ill for that game. Zuma, we don't know when he's going to be back. It definitely does raise the alarms that we do need to bring in some players to mitigate those circumstances. And obviously that's what the January transfer window hopefully will be all about. It's already kicking off a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I think you're dead right. I think that was what it highlighted. We've kind of known it all season. People have sort of criticised Moyes quite a fair bit with his lack of rotation, and I've certainly been one of them at times, thinking, why aren't we? But then suddenly you see like our second string players, and you think, well, that's probably the reason why. They're just not at the right level. They're really not. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to smack players around like Fornals, Benrahma, etc., and say, they were awful. Because I don't think it was an awful performance. It was just one of those games. It was a tough game. I think Brighton, very similar to us, had players miss him. So they weren't at their full strength, but they're always a very well-organised outfit. West Ham, on the other hand, are very well-organised. Whoever we're playing, we always seem to be quite well-drilled and know what we're going to be doing in terms of our defensive work. It had the hallmarks of going to be a 0-0 or a very struggling. It was always going to be, if it was going to be a winner, it was only going to be 1 goal. It was never going to be a goal fest. But like you say, mate, there's so much to be positive about at the moment with West Ham. I mean, what an amazing run we've had over the Christmas period. I mean, 4 games, 3 wins. Out of the 4 games, we've got 3 wins and a draw. There's games against Wolves, Man United, Arsenal, and Brighton. I mean, that's a tough pack of sides there. It's not as if we're playing teams all down the bottom and we should be beating. These are tough opponents, and we've got. I mean, and also haven't conceded a goal in any of those games, so it's pretty remarkable. But I actually thought the performance defensively was good. Going forward, obviously, it probably lacked a little bit of cutting edge. I mean, it was one of those, I think, once we got into the second half, possibly the last 40 minutes, 30 minutes or so, I think West Ham settled for the point. I think we realised we'd probably run out a bit of steam. We weren't going to, it was unlikely we were going to carve out really many more chances. It's almost like the team sort of actually started settling for it. I feel like we'll just get a point out of this, draw a line under it and move on. As you say, though, mate, 6 players out: Kudus, Paqueta, Antonio, Zuma, Gerd, and Soufal all out. So, like you say, it's very difficult when you're losing that amount of quality from your first team and expect to come out on pitch and play like prime Barcelona. It's highly unlikely. But as you've said, mate, it just highlights the lack of depth in this squad. It's just quite alarming how much we drop off. It's quite stark. And as you say, with Kudus being away possibly until sort of, I think the final for Africa Cup of Nations 11th of February. So I think he could be missing key games, possibly even Arsenal and Man United again when we play them again. So it's showing that we do need to invest because we can't rely upon our bench. Unfortunately, it's just not quite at the right level. I will say though, I thought there was a couple of good performances from players that have surprised me a little bit since coming back into the side. Ben Johnson, I thought, put in a decent shift and it's come back in, actually looked quite assured and looked like he looks like he hasn't really missed a beat. And there has to be that sort of conversation about him again, because obviously West Ham have been trying to keep him. I think he wants to leave. He wants a certain wage. What was your thoughts on Johnson? Was you pleased with him? I mean, my personal preference, I thought he played all right, but I had a couple of people say no, he was a bit overrated, what I was suggesting. But I don't know, what was your take on it?
I think he's played okay. I'll be honest. I don't think he's at Premier League level, and for me, I think that we've got to sacrifice quite a few players this window in order to bring in some players who can actually be brought in for rotation. I mean, players like Tilo, who I think are I'd much rather have Tilo playing at right back than Johnson. To be honest with you, I think that he's got more to prove. I think he's got more to offer. And, I just feel like his time isn't necessarily up at West Ham at the moment. But obviously we've got the stuff going on with Monaco at the moment. If he was to leave, it would make sense because essentially he's the 5th choice centre-back and probably the 3rd choice right-back. So it makes sense to me. But if we were going to bring in, say, another right-back, sacrificing Johnson, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So I think that as much as he had a decent performance, and I think the last game he played as well, forgive me, I can't exactly remember which one it was, but he played all right in that one as well. It might have been Liverpool in the cup, maybe.
Yeah.
I can't exactly remember.
Yeah,
but I know when I watched him, he looked decent. He'd say he looked better than last season. But I just feel with Johnson, he's just one of those players where you kind of feel like you've seen enough of him. As well as he's done, and he's an academy player, the last one in the lineup. It does feel like his time's kind of up, and he probably, for himself as well, should go to a different club and try and prove himself,
Yeah. I mean, I think he will go. I get the impression the player wants to change now and wants to, rejuvenate his career, which I completely understand. I just think that, look at that performance last night. I still think he could do a job for us if he wanted to remain, but at the same time, I don't want to keep players here that don't want to be here. I've got one eye elsewhere. I think it's wise if we look to move him on. I can't see him being moved on this January, though. I think it'll be a summer departure. Personally, really? I can't imagine there being just because I can't imagine the club doing wholesale changes. I mean, whether they'd be open to selling him, they possibly. I mean, they may do, but I think because of the lack of money you'll get for him, it probably wouldn't be wise anyway to try and sell him.
What would you take for Johnson?
I think if we could get sort of maybe 6-7 million for him, I just don't know if we'd get that though. I can't imagine many clubs wanting to play. He hasn't played enough to justify that, I don't think. I think realistically, if we're going to sell him, probably 3 million you'd probably get. And then the feeling is, well, yeah, I reckon 3 or 4. I might be wrong. I might be being a bit harsh there. But what would you think then? Would you think it'd be worth more?
See, do you know? I mean, maybe I feel like there's not a lot of Premier League players you can buy for less than 10 million. To be honest with you, unless they're really old. Johnson's like, I'm pretty sure he's like 24, 25 now, is he? Or is he a little bit older than that?
Yeah, but don't forget his contract runs out summer, doesn't it? So
it does. But
most clubs would only say, well, look, we won't bother signing him now. We'll just wait till the summer. We'll go over there and get him on a free. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the issue.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, potentially. But I just can't think of many players his age that play in the Premier League that wouldn't go for at least 8 or 10 million. And I think that we'd be silly not to sell him for at least that. But I don't know, mate. Maybe it will be on the lower end of things, but yeah, I guess we can see.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with him. I mean, like when we go back to quickly onto the game last night, though, I mean, we had a few chances ourselves. I mean, Brighton obviously dominated in terms of the sort of shots. I think I'm looking at the stats now. We had 31% possession. We had 6 shots all in all against Brighton's 22. They had 8 on target. We had 2 on target. So they certainly had their fair share more of chances than we did. But I actually thought we did have a few as well. The ones we did carve out were pretty close. I thought Souček should have scored. Bowen I thought played really well and carved out a few good chances, especially in the first half. I think he went a bit quiet in the second. He looked a bit tired, in my opinion. And I think Alvarez as well. There was one in the I think it might have been the first half where the ball cut across the face of goal and he just sort of slid in and just missed it. So we could have nicked that. I mean, we could have nicked that game, but all in all, it wasn't really one of those games where you could go, "Oh, wow!" It was a good few chances there. It was. I'm sort of clutching at straws a little bit. One thing I do want to talk to you about though is Max Cornet, a player that was on the bench. I was expecting to see him play. I think that game was actually crying out for a bit of pace, but he didn't get a nod, mate. He Moyes again avoided putting him on. What is going on there with Cornet and Moyes? I mean, it's probably not even really worth us talking about it that much because it just seems like it's so obvious now that Max Cornet has absolutely no future at West Ham. I mean, if he can't get on in that game, I don't understand it. But are you? I mean, I'm pretty sure he will go this January. That's my gut feeling. What's your take on Cornet in the situation?
Mate, I thought he was a brilliant bit of business. Bringing him in for what was it, like 17 million? He absolutely tore it up at Burnley. I thought he was pretty much saved them for relegation, to be honest, that season. He came in and he was scoring left, right, and centre. I think he was, like I said, very clever bit of business. He's very different to Ben Rama. He's very direct. He wants to get at goal. He doesn't want to sit there, do a couple step overs and pass it over. Fornals as well as that defensive capability where he likes to track back a bit. And I just can't believe that with, Ben Rama basically looks like he's leaving in January, right? You've got Fulham circling, you've got Leon circling. We both know that the relationship isn't great between him and Moyes. Fornals has got links to Spain. He might go back to Spain. I know they've just extended his contract, I think, by a year, but the idea is they want to sell him on as well. And then Cornet as well is a player that, I think Everton are interested in, which is no surprise. I think he would do very well for them. But I'm just thinking, like, if you kind of know you want to sell Fornals and you kind of know you want to sell Ben Rama, why not give him a shot? Because he's not had a shot, has he? He came on in that Chelsea game and he almost scored. Well, got disallowed. He did score, got disallowed. And since then, we've seen nothing of him. We've had injuries. He could play at striker, left wing, left back. He could play so many different positions. And like you say, this was the perfect game for him. You've got Paqueta out, Kudus out. If you can't get into a first team with 5 of your first team players out, I mean, you've got no chance, have you? So, to be honest, I feel for him. He's gone through all that rehab, gone through that very tough process of getting himself back match fit. And the manager, despite the fact that Ben Rama's out of form, Fornals is out of form, and Kudus and Paqueta are now out the squad, he can't get a sniff, not even as a sub, which is just really frustrating. I know he put Mubama on, which I do respect. I love that he put him on instead of maybe like Danny Ings. Yeah. But at the same time, you think, maybe as Cornet, you're thinking, I've done all this work. I'm a more experienced player. I've got more Premier League goals than him. I've got everything more than him. And he's getting the nod over me, which to you would kind of feel a little bit like a slap in the face, wouldn't it? He's not even his position, left wing, Mubama. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't even get in ahead of no disrespect to Mubama, because I think he's brilliant. If you can't get in ahead of a teenager who's got no Premier League goals, not really playing any Premier League minutes, if you can't get in ahead of him, then you must be feeling to yourself, what am I even doing here? So I do feel for him, mate, and I feel like he probably should leave.
Yeah, I don't see a future for Max Cornet at West Ham anymore. It's sad. Like you, mate, I'm quite puzzled by it all when it comes to Cornet. I understand, obviously, the injury, and it's difficult to get back from that, and you might struggle to get back in the side for a period. But when you're getting opportunities like that, as you say, with no Kudus, no Paqueta, Fornals was having a bit of a dire game. I thought really he was struggling to make any real impact. I mean, don't get me wrong, he wasn't horrendous, but he wasn't blowing anyone away with his performance. You just wonder why he's not getting a chance. I don't quite understand what has happened there. It's almost like there's no relationship between him and Moyes anymore. I just don't understand it. I can't work out why he's not being given any opportunity just at all to prove himself. Because he did actually feature, didn't he, in a Europa League game early in the season, and he created and set up the goal, if I remember rightly. He got an assist. So I don't get it. I just do not know what's happened there. But it's one of those that gives the impression that he is definitely on his way out this January. As you say, there's a few clubs sniffing around him, Everton being one. And I get the feeling with Cornet that once he goes on, let's just say he goes to Everton, you get the feeling he's going to do really well there. He'll start banging goals in and looking really well. And we'll be going, why did we let him go? It's a really strange one, and I do actually feel for the player because it just seems like this has been an absolute disastrous move for him. Well, it's not. It hasn't seemed like it is. It has been. And he put up a. I don't know if you saw it, an Instagram post. I can't remember it off the top of my head. It was some sort of like. I can't.
It was kind of like when people don't believe in you. Basically, just don't take it on board and do it for yourself, sort of thing.
Right.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah. Oh, it was. It's very moving. Very moving post. I can't remember. I looked at it, but it was like, something like that. But I mean, it kind of leaned towards a bit of a dig at Moyes, possibly,
So he said, never let someone make you think you can't, because what you have, no one is going to get it for you.
Should put that on a card, mate. Should put that on a card. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
happy birthday.
T-shirt.
There you go. Yeah. So, I mean, it's obvious that he's on his way out of this football club, and I'm quite pleased for him in a way that he's going to move on, because I think he desperately needs to, and I think we need to. We just need to draw a line under it. There's a few club players at this club now that need to go. Four Downs is one. I think he's had enough. As you say, Ben Rama, and we need it as well as a football club, because we can't keep being in a position where our standards drop so significantly every time we lose a couple of players. Look, I'm not deluded. I'm not sitting here thinking. I know there's some fans that seem to think that we've got this power to do this, but we can't have a Kudus and a Paqueta on the bench. You know what I mean? That's never going to be the case. Like, we always are. They are going to be our first team players, and I understand that if you do get an injury, it is going to be an impact. Like you said, mate, Man City get it with Haaland and De Bruyne. They're not going to have another go. Oh, let's just go and get another Haaland out. That doesn't happen. But so you have to accommodate that, and sometimes you will slow you up a little bit. It may hamper your results, etc., and performances. But we are so bad. You know what I mean? We're not so bad. It's putting the right word, but we just lack any kind of creativity. Like last night, we had nothing. Like, you looking around the players and thinking, we've got no one on this pitch that's really able to carve anything out and make something happen. And it made it quite difficult. And look, that's going to happen because the likes of Paqueta and Kudus are gems. You know what I mean? They're really difficult. You're not going to find many of those around, but we do need to improve upon what we've got on the bench, because we are lacking at the moment. Which, like you said, mate, makes January very important.
If you rate Paqueta and Kudus as a 10-10 sort of player, then what are you rating Ben Rama? You're probably rating him maybe like a 6, maybe a 7 for now, probably around a 6 as well. You kind of want 7 and 8s on the bench, really. If you've got 10s in front of you, you want some 7 and 8s on the bench. Or maybe at least a 9, someone who's going to, give a little bit of competition. But as you say, it's very difficult to get players, and you don't really want it, do you? You don't really want an expensive player on the bench that you can't fit into the team. When we had Kudus on the bench and we were playing with, Antonio, Bowen and Ben Rama, and they were playing all right, you thought, well, it's difficult to put Kudus in because we don't want to get rid of Bowen. So obviously we compensated with that by putting Bowen at striker. You don't want these big players on the bench. So I think improving the first team is the most important thing. But if it's going to be that big a drop in quality when you lose these sorts of players, then it gets very dangerous, because you can go from having a fully fit squad to 3 or 4 players out within a game. It happens. I mean, Newcastle's injury list goes on and on, and it hit them very, very quickly. Same with a lot of teams, mate. So especially this season, of any season, I think, getting some loan players in January, getting a couple of players in is going to be very, very important. But unfortunately for us, we kind of have to sell to do that. So, it's going to be difficult to retain the numbers, but also improve the quality.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a busy period for Tim Steierton. He's already proven himself to be pretty shrewd in what he can do and the market and how he operates. So I think this is another big test for him, really, this January. Not so much looking at first team and big name signings, but just to try and bolster up our bench a little bit and try to make us a little bit more stronger in terms of depth, because we are lacking. Of course, we've got Tilo Kehrer, as you said, mate. He looks like he's on his way to Monaco. I think that's going to be confirmed probably within the next couple of days. And then you've got Saïd Benrahma, you've got Maxwel Cornet, look like they're going to be on their way. Pablo Fornals. I mean, there's a good handful of players there that we're going to need to replace. It's going to be interesting. It's an exciting time. I mean, because West Ham, take nothing away. This isn't a doom and gloom video by any stretch. It's been a very good season so far. We're sitting 6th. We're sitting comfortably in 6th as well. We've got a good run of fixtures coming up. We've got Sheffield United next in the league, which you'd expect to be a good opportunity for us to get another 3 points. And hopefully by then as well, we'll have Paqueta back fully fit, and we'll hopefully as well have a couple of new additions added to the squad to give everyone a bit of a lift as well. this if they can get this right, this January transfer window, you get the feeling that we could really kick on this season. And mate, there's an opportunity here because not only for European football again, which would be incredible if West Ham were able to secure European football for a 4th year running, that would be amazing. But considering the fact that the 5th spot might be a Champions League spot this year, I mean, West Ham are in with a shout. Look, it's a big shout. It's quite a big stretch as well for us to get it. But that's not to say we can't. And if West Ham were, if all I'm saying is, if you remember the season when we finished 6th, when we brought in Jesse Lingard on that loan, and the impact that he had, not just in his goals and assists, but he just lifted everybody. It gave everyone that kind of renewed energy, to go, oh my God, but we've got, and then you started seeing like the finish line thing. West Ham, I mean, if you remember that season, we were 3 points off 4th, 3 bloody points. And we lost at Newcastle, and we were, if I remember rightly, we were 2-0 down, and we got it back to 2-2, and I thought we're going to go and win this, and then we lost right at the end 3-2.
Not to mention the fact we choked like 2 or 3-0 up in a row, didn't we? Like Arsenal.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And another game with 3-0 up.
And all I'm thinking is, if West Ham can emulate that, if West Ham can just bring in that 1 or 2 players, like bring in another decent defender, and let's just say, like I did a video earlier, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but just say we brought in, say, a Jadon Sancho or someone like that to say that's going to come in on a 6-month loan, and they just come in and just smash it and just go, look, I just want to rejuvenate my career, one eye on the Euros, and go, look, I just want to play really well, get some goals. You know what, mate? It could happen for West Ham. It really could. So it's a big month, and look, we've ended a really busy period of Premier League football in a great position. I've looked earlier. We're top of the league, mate, in the form table. West Ham out of 4 games, we're sitting top of the league, 10 points from 4 games, and 7 goals scored without conceding 1 is pretty remarkable. So there's nothing really to be miserable about. Yes, the performance wasn't wonderful and exciting, but as we've said, mate, it wasn't really to be expected. I would have been more surprised if West Ham had went and won 3-0 with that squad. Do you know what I mean? You go, bloody hell, where did that come from? It was very unlikely to be a thrilling encounter. I'm just, like you said, mate, delighted that we've managed to take 4 points off Brighton. I mean, bloody hell, when does that ever happen? So, all in all, mate, I'm very happy. Obviously, we've got videos coming up this week and next. Well, we're going to be chock-a-block, me and Riley, really busy. We talked about this before we came on air. Like, we've got so much to do in terms of updates regarding West Ham. It's going to be thick and fast, isn't it, mate? With old ex-director employee, I'm sure he's not going to be getting too much sleep.
No, I think between the 3 of us, we'll almost be as busy as Tim Steinem will be in this
exactly.
window. So hopefully, like you say, this is probably our most exciting period. I think for me and Mark is always the transfer windows, because it's always, like you say, thick and fast. We got so much to talk about. Sometimes during the week we're kind of like, oh, should we jump on this one or this one? This week it's just like, right, cool, bang, bang, bang. We've got so many people to talk about, and obviously, we're one of the channels that has the allowance to be able to have someone so in the know like X. So we were able to bring news so quickly to you guys. So it's going to be a very, very exciting period, but very, very busy. And I think as well, considering there's between now and the 21st, we're only playing in Bristol City in the Cup. We've got a lot of time to get those transfers. There's not a lot of games in this in this January period. So, we've got a lot of time to get some transfers through. I think there'll be a lot of how many transfers do you reckon we're going to make, mate? Like outgoings, incomings?
I think I'm imagining we'll see 3 go, possibly 4. And I don't think we're bringing as many in. I imagine they're going to promote academy players. My gut feeling will be that. So I imagine we'll probably bring in 2. That's my gut feeling. So I imagine 3 or 4 will go, 2 will come in, and possibly they will add a couple of academy boys to it. That's my gut feeling on it. Just because I know we haven't got the money, so I can't. If we're going to spend, if you're thinking about the players we're going to sell, I can't see how we're going to generate a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you realistically, what we're going to make 20 million, maybe 30 million, the maximum. And if we're going to buy a couple of players in,
I think one bonus is, unless I'm mistaken, which I don't think I am, I don't think we have a loan player, do we, this year so far?
No, we don't. So, I mean, I think that will be something we will explore, definitely. So
I think the avenue is probably maybe 2 loan players and maybe a permanent player. I think if not, we'll get at least 1 loan player. I think Eric Dyer, Jadon Sancho kind of going about, Reece Nelson, Smith Rowe would make sense as well on a 6-month loan, something like that. But I think definitely the loan market is something we're going to be exploring. Ekitike is someone as well who's available. I wouldn't be surprised to see us revisit a few, but I reckon, like you, we'll probably get 2, 1 on a permanent and 1 on a loan. And I could definitely see it being an out of favour player that Moyes could work his magic on before. We've seen Dawson, we've seen Lingard, mate. I think, he could do his business.
I agree, mate. Totally agree. And you've got a video coming up later, haven't you, regarding Arsenal? You've got some is that right? You've got a few.
Yeah.
So we've got a bit of interest there.
3 Arsenal players that I think one of them is a player we're not much history of us being interested with him, and the other 2 are people that we've been interested in for a while. Right, so okay. Be interesting to see if this is the time for us to finally sweep in and get it done.
Absolutely. Well, it's an exciting time, mate. And look, it's as you say, we haven't got much football to talk about in the next few weeks. We've got Bristol City on Sunday, and then after that, we've got pretty much a 3-week gap-ish, a bit less, 2.5 weeks until we play again. So it gives us, actually, to be honest, a much-needed bit of breathing space, I think, for the players. I think they've had a real busy period. And obviously, we did well first start of the season with the Premier League and in the Europa League. Sorry, so it's really needed, I think, and it gives us the opportunity to then focus on bringing players in and also get players back fit. So, mate, exciting times, and on to a very busy January. Come on, you Irons.